And a good morning to everyone. Um, Once again, let me explain why I'm posting the title 3 Days to Midnight. And folks, first of all, please understand that the scientists that run the so-called doomsday clock have it at 2 minutes to midnight. So my 3 days to midnight is far, far, far away from their 2 minutes to midnight. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is to draw attention. I'm not predicting anything to happen on Hanukkah. What I'm doing is I'm drawing attention to the first day of Hanukkah. Why? Because what is written in Haggai 2 verses 18 through 22. It mentions that day, the day that Jehovah's temple, the foundation of Jehovah's temple was laid. He said to set that day, to mark your calendar for that day, because it is on that day that he's going to overthrow the kingdoms, the nations of the Gentiles. And he will make Zerubbabel a sign. Zerubbabel means conceived in Babylon. So Zerubbabel represented the exiles who were born in Babylon, and he calls out to them and says, "Come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins," and you know the rest. So that is the reason. And tomorrow, if I have anything to say concerning what's the world events, I'm going to post 2 days to midnight. Now, I want to go ahead and get started on this video because there are some things that people are going to miss if they're not watching carefully. And there's something that I noticed that needs to be looked at once again very carefully. So on Vox this morning. Now, Vox is a sort of a left-wing publication, and it was posted yesterday before lunchtime, Eastern Standard Time, by Alex Ward. As everyone should know by now, that the State Department had scheduled a meeting between President Donald Trump of the United States and President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation to be for November the 29th. What happened? Well, there apparently has been a change of plan. And you might not even notice it even by this particular article, but when I go to the next one, you will see something is amiss. Trump may cancel his G20 meeting with Putin. If he nixes the meeting, it would be quite a change for Trump. President Donald Trump plans to meet with world leaders on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina this week, including with the heads of Japan, Germany, and China. But there's one meeting he may cancel: a chat with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In an interview with the Washington Post on Tuesday, Trump said he might scrap the meeting over Russia's attack on 3 Ukrainian ships in a vital waterway 2 days earlier. You should all know by now what the story is. So I'm going to go down here where it says why snubbing Putin would be new for Trump. There are good reasons to be skeptical for Trump's comments, he thinks. Like I said, this is a left-wing organization, so bear that in mind, please. Since the start of his presidency, Trump has tried to improve relations between Washington and Moscow and has rejected multiple opportunities to blame Russia for interfering in the 2016 presidential election. His administration has taken stronger action against the Kremlin, however, and imposed sanctions on Russia over the attempted murder of a Soviet spy living in the UK earlier this year. But snubbing Putin over the Kerch Strait imbroglio would arguably prove Trump's strongest move against Russia yet. At the last G20 summit in July 2017, Trump met with his Russian counterpart twice. In the first meeting, Trump bought Putin's denials that Moscow tried to sway the 2016 U.S. presidential vote, even though the U.S. intelligence community assessed that it had. And in an originally undisclosed second encounter during dinner, Trump and Putin spoke for about an hour with only Moscow's translator present. It's still unknown what the leaders said to each other during that meeting. For Trump to potentially turn from friend to foe in a year would show that he, and not just his administration, wants to hold Russia accountable for its actions. It'd be out of character for Trump, and that's exactly why it's so noteworthy. Now, folks, let's not forget the title here. Trump may cancel his G20 meeting with Putin, and he even said so. Now look at this. This is strange. From the Kremlin. Now listen, now when you read this title, you're assuming that you will assume that this meeting is indeed going to take place. But if you read the fine print, you're not so sure anymore. So the date now has been changed according to the Kremlin. According to the Kremlin communique, President Vladimir Putin will meet President Donald Trump on Saturday on the sidelines of the G20 summit at Buenos Aires. White House confirmation is waiting. Let's see here. That would be December the 1st, would it not? I think so. So they changed the date, but it says White House confirmation is awaited. In other words, the original meeting was canceled. And the Kremlin is waiting on the White House to respond. Oh, you see, folks, something is amiss. Now, while all this is going on, hopefully I haven't lost my spot here. While all this is going on, get a load of this. On the Jewish News Syndicate, Yoni Ben Menachem is reporting that Iran is preparing for escalation on Israel's northern border. The possibility of Israel launching a preemptive military strike should not be ruled out. Now, this is not the point that I want to get to. What I want to get to is a gross miscalculation on the part of Iran. I will read this, and you will see it as I'm reading it. November 29, 2018, the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, commentators on the Arab world, are watching Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Gadi Eisenkot with interest following media reports that he canceled an important meeting in Germany called for next week. And the reasons for his cancellation remain obscure. They believe it is connected to developments in the northern border, and not specifically with the situation in Gaza following a renewal of Egyptian contacts with Israel and Hamas to advance understandings for calm. The Iranian leadership is sure that Israel is weak, and this is the time to strike against it. In the 32nd International Islamic Unity Conference, which took place in Tehran on November 24, 2018, Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei made the following statement about Israel. The Zionist enemy crumpled against the Palestinian resistance after only 2 days. All this proves is that the Zionist regime is significantly weakened. The pace of weakening is increasing. What are Iran and Hezbollah planning? Senior security sources in Israel are suspicious of secret activities by General Qasem Soleimani, leader of the Quds force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards in Syria and Lebanon, who is planning to inflame the northern sectors against Israel in two ways: deploying Hezbollah and pro-Iranian forces close to the border fence on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, with the assistance of local Druze and pro-Iranian elements, which in exchange for financial payment would construct terrorist infrastructure for attacks against Israel. These include laying mines and IEDs, firing anti-tank missiles at IDF patrols, and launching mortar attacks on Israeli communities in the Golan Heights. General Soleimani and Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah prefers this option instead of attacks launched from southern Lebanon, as it would neutralize Israel's possible counterstrike and the destruction of Lebanon's civilian infrastructure. Oh. So Russia's proxies want to attack from the Golan Heights, sure enough. Interesting. Opening a new front against Israel from the Syrian Golan Heights would also divide IDF forces among several fronts. Number two, constructing factories inside Lebanon to upgrade the missiles in the possession of Hezbollah to become more accurate and capable of hitting strategic targets deep in Israel more accurately. These targets include Ben Gurion Airport, the atomic reactor in Dimona. Yes, see, folks, you got to understand the atomic reactor in Dimona was a target in 1967, was a target by none other than the USSR. Fortunately, they backed off. Refineries in Haifa and various IDF bases. The working assumption of Hezbollah and Iran is that Israel would not dare to launch a preemptive strike on these factories out of fear that this would lead to an all-out war. Syrian opposition groups left southern Syria in September. An entire region is now under Syrian army control. In the past, Hezbollah's Nasrallah attempted to open a new front against Israel in the Golan Heights using a local infrastructure. He gave his mission to Samir Kuntar, a Lebanese terrorist who sat in an Israeli prison for 9 years, and Jihad Mekaneh, son of infamous arch-terrorist Imad or Mughniyeh. However, according to foreign news reports, the IDF assassinated both of them in 2015 before they carried out attacks. The Hezbollah leader has apparently placed this issue at the top of his priorities in order to settle his accounts with Israel. Israel is aware of Nasrallah's intentions, and this was reflected in Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot's tour of the border area in the Golan Heights in November 2018. Israel shares fully with the Trump administration all of its concerns about possible developments on the northern border. Can any scenario be ruled out? The possibility cannot be ruled out that Iran, via Hezbollah, is planning a new war of attrition against Israel from the Golan Heights border. At the same time, the war of attrition with Hamas on the southern border through the Return Marches campaign. The development on the northern border is worrying. Israel's freedom of aerial action in Syrian airspace is limited following the incident in which a Russian spy plane was brought down by a Syrian air defense system in September 2018. Russia blamed the Israeli Air Force for the interception. Russia transferred S-300 missile batteries to Syria, and with Russian guidance, these have been integrated and gradually into the Syrian air defense system. Now, one thing to mention here is that Israel and the United States have until January the 1st to figure out what to do about those S-300 systems. Just making that point as I continue. The possibility that Israel will launch a military preemptive strike on Hezbollah weapons factories in Lebanon before they become operational seem very far off, but not illogical. Iran and Hezbollah constructed these factories after Israel managed methodically and over a period of time to destroy game-changing advanced weaponry being transferred in convoys from Iran to Lebanon. With the weapons destruction, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Commander General Qasem Soleimani decided to construct the weapons factories inside Lebanon to prevent Israeli attacks. We are now in a very tense period regarding security on the southern and northern borders, and with growing Iranian intervention in the region, no possible scenario can be ruled out. The IDF can handle several fronts at the same time. It has done so in the past, and it can also do it again in the future. Israel is determined to protect the security of its citizens, but may have no other choice other than to carry out actions that may not seem to be rational right now. So folks, as you see, the strings are tightening in the West, I should say in the North, and in the Middle East. It doesn't look good for peace, does it? And as I mentioned so many times before, folks, concerning when they shall say peace and safety, there's nothing in, what is it, 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 3, I believe it's where it's at, I think. When they shall say peace and safety, it doesn't say there's going to be a peace agreement. It specifically says when they shall say. Well, they've been saying this for years. There's not going to be a peace agreement being signed, folks. Between Israel and some Western entity? No, there's not. So, folks, it's getting closer to the time of reckoning. And once again, I say to one and I say to all, look at Haggai 2, verses 18 through 22. Read it carefully. Go through it with the Strong's Concordance. Then locate that date that we're supposed to set. Locate it on the Hebrew calendar, and then locate it on the Roman calendar if you wish. That date's coming up, and things don't look very good for the world, that is. But when things don't look good for the world, it's starting to look great for the kingdom in Israel.